T-Pain.
Oh, cool. That's going to be fun. So we'll head to you, right at the front end of this thing, okay?
Okay.
We're going to give you a little update about, the special session and maybe just a little bit about the national conference too, and the flyer that you all produced that showed the budgetary reality of the give
Yeah.
back. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Powerful graphics there.
I can't figure out
Well,
how to mute me.
the good thing is we have the backup information too, so they can't say it's not accurate.
Yeah, you didn't make it up. So we're just waiting a few minutes. So our traditional 6:05 is 6 o'clock in the world of where we are, and then we'll get started. Stephanie's on the road. Amanda's here. There's Stephanie in the back seat heading towards the important conference in Miami, and everybody's on the way. It's Friday night. Friday nights are Friday nights, and one tries to have some degree of life in spite of all the rest of the other stuff we've got going on. So for you that are here, welcome. Again, we're just going to wait another minute, and then we'll get started. We're going to really check in with Stephanie, and then we're going to check in with Alan, and then we'll go from there. We're going to talk tonight about the role of the Agency for Healthcare Administration and the 3 to 18 population, and why the waiver can be so absolutely important to waive the family income to help starve off family poverty and destruction that comes with a lack of care, and why that was historically so important, and why it's important to educate people about that. So Stephanie, how you doing? Oh, you went dark. I can't hear you.
Oh, there it is. Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.
I'm on the phone and I can't figure out how to unmute, and I'm in some other bubble box. But anyways, I was actually thinking Alan is at his concert right now. So why don't we start with Alan? And I've got spotty internet. So maybe by the time he's ready to go play, I'll be back in action.
Or have done it all. Alan, so tell us what's on your mind today.
Okay, Tom. Well, thanks. Spent a lot of time the last couple of weeks meeting with Office of Programming and Planning in the governor's office, policy chiefs in the House and Senate, some legislators. In fact, we had met with Representative Bartleman just before that meeting. So when she's talking about, I just talked to someone who said that you're not spending all the money and all that. That was me, and I went with Dustin, who's another lobbyist in our office, to talk to Bartleman, who's a big supporter of what we're trying to get done. It's interesting. I like the way Melanie recently in one of the discussions started off with the basics at one of the delegation meetings about who we're talking about for the budget. And a lot of these policymakers don't understand, because the title of the program is the Agency of Persons with Disabilities. So they think people with substance abuse problems, people that are in wheelchair for, people in a car accident, that all these people are in the program, when really it's just 7 specific issues that are forever. And I like the way, and I started doing that when I meet with legislators, and they're surprised, actually. The other thing I've been surprised at is a lot of these legislators think they're doing a lot for us when they do the special projects. So if they give $7 million to someone in their community for disabilities, and you notice at the end of the session there's all these special projects, they think they did it. They think they did all. I mean, they probably leave feeling really good. And it was interesting. I was meeting with someone in leadership, and they said, how much do you want? To me, the ARC. And I go, I never ask for any money. If an ARC chapter wants money, they got to hire their own lobbyists. We don't want any money. We just want money to go into the pot. So families can choose the providers they want. But we're not seeking any money. We're seeking zero. And I think that was kind of stunning. And it was someone in leadership that they didn't understand that principle, because, when they're hearing from people in the community, it's normally providers asking for specific money for them.
Well,
And
Alan,
so, yeah,
can I interject for just a second? What you've been doing through the ARC is creating really understandable graphics. Do you think it's possible to ask one more time to do something that really does define developmental disabilities to help clarify that misunderstanding or limited understanding? Because it seems to me
yeah,
the more we clarify, the better support focus we're getting.
I agree, and I think we need to do that. I'm right now. I'm working on. I'm finding that handing out 5 pieces of paper is too much. I'm trying to consolidate everything in one page, where the big issues are there, and I could talk about all what was normally on the pages. Um, I'll tell you the one thing about reverting money when we have that $700 million amount. It's probably a lot more because we only looked at certain categories, but it's not really reverting all that money because sometimes they could have used it, but they decided not to match it or different things like that. But one of the things that's kind of amazing is the money that they didn't use that they could have used. And that's why when I talk to people, I go, I'm looking at this from an advocate's point of view. If we're in crisis, if there's money that's in that pile that can't be spent, we're going to double it and use it because that's how you do it efficiently. But I think that I think that the money there would have funded everything that people were asking for. That's the amazing thing. So I keep talking about that. I've talked to the people that do the budget so they can call me on things if they think I'm wrong. I know APD is not happy that that's out there, but it's true. And one other thing
Well,
is
let me
looking at,
interject something on that, Alan. So APD is not happy that people are bringing to their attention that perhaps the pressures of being intended to help but being forced to say no has created this surplus. Is I would hope that they would be embracing the fact that finally people are bringing to the legislators' attention the important work they do and that they need to untie them from being so afraid to being actually appropriately delivering services. And so with that is the question about, well, do you really think that the state should be doing this or not?
let me say this because the issue isn't just there's money they could have spent. It's just the rate is so low
Right.
that right now the providers are managing deficits. And so if some of them are keeping group homes empty because the more you hire, the bigger your deficit is because the amount in the waiver doesn't equal to the amount you're spending. So they're basically managing deficits, and it would have collapsed if most of the providers didn't do the earned employee tax credit that they did. So they had money to the side, but they're using that money to make up the deficits. But even if you take people off the wait list, there's still got to be capacity out there. But people are shrinking, they're reducing services, and so that's where the chicken egg thing comes in. You could put more money you could empty the wait list out and not have anyone be able to get services. In fact, this year I asked Jim DeBogren to look at it, and he said they're only spending 6 cents on the dollar from the iBudget waiver right now. And so it's a moving target and it's early in the year, but it's hard to spend money if people don't have access to providers that can
So in
meet their needs.
July of last year, the new rates came out, the new increases came out and went into effect. Are there more rate increases being proposed to say, although it's at 21, it really needs to be 28 as an example, so
Well,
there is something to get a hold of?
last year we didn't get a rate increase. In fact, things got worse because of a number of things. For example, the American Rescue Plan went away, which was money that we were using to maintain staff by giving bonuses for recruitment and retention. Also, Appendix K goes away on the 11th tomorrow, which dealt with staff ratios. And now, if we're not in staff ratio, we have to send people home. The minimum wage went up in October, and state employees keep getting raises. They got more than 5% last year. When people in disability, disability uh, support professionals, they're probably not looking at a raise unless someone raised some private funds or something. And so that's the challenging part of it. In fact, we just rewrote. We were seeking 6% from last year across the board. We now up to 10% because we know even if we get to 6%, they're not going to make it. So we've gone up even more, even though we feel like we have to ask for it to be able to sustain the program and grow it.
And so is that getting any kind of traction in people's awareness of
Yeah,
capacity?
all my meetings are going well. I haven't had a bad meeting. And next week I'm meeting with the chair of the health committee, Sam. I just went blank on his last name.
Garrison.
Sam Garrison. I mean, they all understanding, but they really need to understand there's going to be serious negative implications if they don't step up and fund the program.
So do you find, Alan, that there is a climate of increased interest in APD during this session as compared to maybe years past?
I think there's a lot of chatter about it, and I think Senator Pasadomo has put it on a radar screen as more of a workforce issue, which is good because workforce means other expenses with the workforce. But we're such a small program. We normally get carried along with the other programs when they need funding, because normally the economy hits everyone the same, be it child welfare or anything. But the problem is, it's harder and harder when the places in the community where there's not as much responsibility and a lot more flexibility pay significantly more than we pay. And it's hard to rely on the fact that you get to make a difference, although you don't get paid much, but you get to make a difference. I don't think that cuts it with this next generation.
No, it doesn't pay your electric bill either.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, we're fighting every day. I love watching the delegation meetings. It's been exciting to see the families step up and speak up. I know some of them have gotten services afterwards. We need to let other families know that they got services because they spoke up. And we did see last week significant money for it's really not the APD budget, but it's education to go to private schools and stuff. Uh, so that wasn't in our budget, but I guess it's more choice for families. So I don't see it as a bad thing whenever there's choice. I don't know how it impacts the public school system. But next week's a big week. Uh, they're having a bunch of important meetings. Uh, I'm worried about this whole notion that we're going to change the name of APD to persons with intellectual, they want to use children with unique
ability.
abilities. And
Yeah.
every time I hear that, I think of the X-Men and people that can turn invisible and stuff. I mean, I don't know why, but I've been talking to people with disabilities, and I haven't found someone that likes that idea. It almost hides the fact that they need supports. But I think that's going to be their big issue. I think it's going to be a distraction. But really, it's what people with disabilities and their families want is going to win that. But I haven't heard people supporting it yet.
Now, Stephanie and I were talking a little bit about the legislative process and the time frames. And as you're mentioning, the committee meetings are really starting. And so the fruits of the work or the efforts to get the initial language, some of the impacts that says I'm going to put it in a bill is about to be revealed. And so we'll be seeing potentially what impacts, if any, that has had legislatively. And it's important that we continue to be a presence. And one of the things that I was talking about was the importance to still maintain connections with your local offices under constituent services, because not everybody went to Tallahassee. They left folks behind to be able to handle the local stuff. And that's where the ask is for, I need help with APD and that type of thing should go now.
So what you mean is their aides are there back in the office, right?
Oh,
That's the word.
yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
What
Alan.
would you say the next move is?
I was going to say the next big date is, I think it's either December 1st or December 10th where the governor comes out with their budget. The APD budget's not really relevant because they've never put rate increases since as long as I've known, and that's been 25 years. So the governor 2 years ago put a rate increase, not significant, but it was enough to get us in the conversation. That's the date I'm waiting for now. And the other thing I've brought up is maybe we need a Florida rescue plan like they had an American rescue plan. I just saw that Ohio gave all their providers a 35% rate increase in their budget because they realized things were about to collapse. And so we keep fighting, and I appreciate all of you guys being involved and me supporting, and validating what you're saying to your local delegations, to people up in Tallahassee.
Well, we are committed to this, and we really appreciate you giving us the insights from you're one of the big dogs in the game here, and we really appreciate what you're doing and the openness and the education you're giving. And our voices are not going away, and we're looking at how do we continue to keep it up during the session and before the session, and we want to keep having a presence, and we'll talk some more about that. But you got any last words, or are you off to the concert?
Getting ready to walk about 300 yards from the concert.
Hey, Alan, I want to
Yeah.
ask you real quick. What state did you say just did a rescue plan?
Ohio.
Well, I say Florida needs a rescue plan.
I know. Which
With all
state
the-
did
with
you
all the-
say? Ohio?
No, Ohio just increased the rates by 35%.
Okay.
Ohio takes Medicaid expansion.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, because they care.
Okay. All right.
but anyway, thanks everyone. Good to see you again, Fino.
I love that.
We'll talk next week sometime.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks,
Take
Alan.
care.
Appreciate it.
Stephanie, you're in
Bye.
window of internet still? Or are you frozen? I think she looks proud. She looks almost frozen. That's it. Yeah.
No,
Are you back? There she is. She's unfrozen.
I don't know. I've got one bar, so you may want to come back to me because we're about to be on the other side of the state, and then it gets better.
Okay. Well, what the other thing you can do is if you turn your video off, you'll have audio really much better. And what I wanted to do was take a few minutes
Like that?
to share your there you go, to be able to share your video of the delegation presentation. It's just a couple of minutes, but we've been talking about these things and using examples, and I think Stephanie did a darn good job. And as the leader of the pack here, it might not be not a bad idea to kind of brag on you a little bit. So how do I get up to where I was? Let's see, can you share my screen?
Hang on, Tom. I'm learning all of this too. Sorry.
That's okay. So we are working on becoming technologically savvy, even though we're not. And what we're about to look at is the Sarasota County Legislative Delegation presentation from a little bit ago. But
Well, let me circle back to something Alan was talking about with the Agency for People with Unique Abilities. I did have an opportunity to share my perspective on that with Senator Pasadomo. And then today I spoke with House Representative Lauren Mello. And so this is what I said. And your words are your words, but I'll let you know what she said after that. So I was talking to her about some language in a bill, and I said, one more thing. When you meet with Director Hatch next week, would you please mention to her that families have noticed her shift in language in her public appearances from the Agency of Persons with Disabilities to the Agency of People with Unique Abilities. If there's going to be an agency change, a name change, the Agency for Persons with Developmental Disabilities would provide the most clarity and with the intent of the agency. The word disability is not an offensive word, and clarity is key. Last year, she changed the word from wait list to pre-enrollment list. Glossing over the vernacular doesn't make the need go away, and the expenses incurred to update their site plus their printed publications is very frustrating when there's just so many other areas of growth. I have gotten 208 communications from local folks with physical disabilities and mental disabilities, wondering if the APD can help them through through Autism Collier in the past 10 months. Imagine the confusion that unique abilities would bring. And her response was, okay, valid point. I will discuss with her. It could just be a talking point to get people to listen better. I do understand your perspective. And I think, you know, I read the whole thing so that can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, cool. I read the whole thing so that you could kind of figure out a way to keep the conversation with our legislators, even though they're up in Tallahassee, by having conversations like this. You know, I'm real concerned that if we say unique abilities and no longer disability, then that means disabilities go away, which they don't. We all know. But those are like kind of things we could talk to keep the conversation alive. And I think I've stalled long enough. I am not President Trump. What are you doing? Is that you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we were able to beat that pretty quickly, and got back to here. So what this is you want to introduce this?
This is the Sarasota delegation.
Wow, you really got it deep.
Just go ahead. It's 2 minutes. We
Good.
only have an hour.
Mello and Senate President Kathleen Pasadena, who's echoed your sentiments that we are taking a serious look at our population and that there is a lot of growth to do. I have 4 boys, and I have 2 boys that have severe autism. Last February, my son fell out of his school window. He broke his skull in 5 places. There was air, swelling, and blood on his brain. He broke his spine in 5 places, punctured his lungs, broke his ribs. Both of his arms were sticking out of his skin. And when the paramedics came to get my son, he was trying to pull his forearm out of his arm. So I was in crisis. The school that he fell out of was a private, highly therapized school for children like him, and all of those supports and services for him and his brother went out the window with Logan. So that is, I've submitted some of the language I'm talking to our legislators about, and I hope that it comes across your desk. You will support it. But the reason I came to Sarasota today was for those families that came and spoke to you. We have, as families, come together and made a decision that we need to communicate with you. We need to be resources for you, because this is incredibly complex and individualized. And so that's why I'm here. Thank you so much for having me.
Ms. Norton, how old's your son?
He just turned 14 on Saturday.
That's so heart-wrenching that happened to you. You know, as someone that has 2 young daughters and a son, my heart goes out to you. We'll be praying for you, and please, as it relates to that legislation, you have some great advocates, President Pasadomo and others, but feel free when that's available to provide that information to us as well.
Yes.
Yeah, please make sure you provide that to our delegation. Thank you so much for being here. Representative Grant.
Just a quick comment. The Charlotte delegation meeting is next month. You can probably save yourself about 50 or 60 miles by visiting that one also.
Which one?
Charlotte County.
Charlotte County. Okay, great. I'll see
You're
you there.
welcome. Please
Thank
come.
you so much for being there.
Okay, so the purpose of showing you guys that is to talk about how they know who we are, and they've invited us to the Charlotte delegation meeting, which is November 20th. It's 9 to 1. I think it starts at 9. And if we could get another presence of families at the Charlotte delegation, then we'll have kind of the beginning of the end. And I think Melissa, get me right on the date. Miami delegation is November 28th or 29th.
So the Miami one is the 28th,
28th.
and the Charlotte County one is the 20th, I believe.
Yeah, the Charlotte one's the 20th. And I would like, if you're in the south part of the state, come over to these meetings. The Miami meeting, the incoming House Speaker Danny Perez, co-sponsor of the managed care pilot bill, and also chief of the House side next year, is going to be at that delegation meeting. And we want to kind of close out delegation meeting season still at just as strong as when we began. and all you have to do is go share your stories. Is that it, Tom?
Yeah, that's the primary
Yeah.
thing, and that we need, what's gonna be happening is what just came in that delegation meeting was that when you get more information, come back to me. And so what he said was, I need to still be educated. And that's one of the roles we'll have, is saying, here's the language, here's what we either support, or here's some things that we're concerned about. And you're building a relationship as being seen as an advocate, an expert, and a resource. And the more that you can provide that, build that kind of relationship with your legislators and with their staff, you get heard. Because, again, you brought valid points, you had specific language, you said it's not just me, it's a whole group of people. There's things that we can do to make it better. And those points, those style points do make a big difference. So I really appreciate that you took the time to do that, to share that. It also, for me, was painful to see. The pain that you shared, I felt it, and everybody in that room felt it. And there is no free admission, and there is no good deed goes unpunished. So we know that hurt to do. And as advocates, as families, we need to recognize we got to take care of ourselves too. And so part of it is right here, is that together, empathetically, we feel your pain, but we also celebrate your voice and know that it is the voice of freedom to say the truth, to be able to tell just how bad it can really be, and how important and how loved our children and our adult children are, and why this is important. And I think part of what we have is we've kind of lost an understanding. Here we are trying to even get folks to understand who gets served. Okay, so there's a long way between they don't support it if they don't understand it, or if
And they definitely don't understand it. They're not getting it. They don't understand it. They are not coming and seeing your homes. They're not working in the field to even come into families' homes and group homes and stuff. So I will be at that Charlotte delegation, and I know that Tim Headley, he's gonna come. The guy that was there.
Yeah, he stole the show. He can come do that again.
I know he's
who else can
coming.
come?
So
I
I know
hear
that
anybody.
well, and that's what I was hoping, that there would be able to be some people coming. I meant to reach out to Loveland, who's down there today, and I didn't. And but I did speak to the director at Community Haven yesterday when I was there. And I need to follow up with one of the guys to see if they can bring some folks down. But I was hoping that Hebby, I don't know if Hebby's going to be there, and I was hoping that some people would be able to come up from Lee County to
We do you remember at the second meeting we had in Sarasota, Jamie, Heather, and Christine Mon, that she's the lady that does card? They said they're gonna go as well. And here's the thing, I went there, I told my piece. They are working on that piece of legislation, which is exciting. But the second part of that was, I'm here with all of my families. So I would really like Charlotte delegation for us to talk about more like the we the people. Since he said, well, why don't you come back? After we said that, like, let's bring the we the people, as many of us that can get there. And if you cannot get there, again, we have those My Story forms. I gave Amanda, you're on tech duty, the links. So if you haven't filled out your story, please do. We want the legislators to see kind of the full gambit of what's going, because not every kid that needs services fell out of his school window. Let's just be honest. It's kind of a 101. but there's,
Some try to burn their house down, some try to do other things.
yeah, right.
There's a wide variety of stories from soup to nuts that can be addressed, but I think one of the things that you said was so important was it's individual, it's unique, it's complicated. And when you said it with such passion, we hope we're going to work on the belief that there's more good than bad out there, and that ignorance is curable and empathy can be created, and that awareness, there's a difference between I don't care about you versus I don't know about you. And if I know about you and I still don't care, well, there you go. If I now know about you and you've helped me care with focus, mission accomplished. Now we're not going to win all the wars. We're not going to convince everybody. Everybody, God forbid, not everybody's that nice. But we're going to operate on they don't know what the Agency for Persons with Disability does, who helps them, how it works, what an impact it can make, what an impact it has made on some, but not all. Because again, if you only hear the problems, then you believe only thing it is a problem. If you hear the impacts, the outcomes, and the changes, and why do we do this? I want to shift gears if I can, Stephanie, and talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind, about
One more thing, and then talk
yes.
about that. The last thing is today the APD came before the House and gave their legislative budget requests. And I know Alan said like doesn't really matter, but there are some like I recorded that part of it, and I sent it to Amanda, that girl, for you guys to look later on the link. It's on our YouTube page. It's 12 minutes. It's not that long, but to kind of get an idea of what the APD is communicating with the legislators, and more importantly, which legislators are asking questions and figuring out who is paying attention. There were some really good questions by legislators, and I can guarantee you that came from their constituents. So like those are follow-up conversations you can also have as these committee meetings roll forward, because we're not really going to have too many opportunities for delegation meetings. At the end, at end of November is it. And the idea is we still have to pay attention to what they're talking about and make sure that we're involved in the process.
And I can tell you, having participated in the legislative budget request process through work groups and things like that, it can be very frustrating because you start out with 150 asks and it gets boiled down to 4. That the other 146 were still good, they just didn't get in, they didn't make the cut. So the good news, it does show kind of some of the plans, some of the maybe marching orders, but that's why it's also good for us to be so engaged in looking at the numbers, understanding the process, continuing to, I describe the bozo effect. Now, this is a very much of an age dating moment here, but when I was a little kid, we had this thing called Bozo the Punching Clown. And it was this blow up toy that stood about 4 foot tall, and it had a sand bottom, and you could hit it as hard as you could and it would bounce right back up. So that's what we kind of have to be like as families is, yeah, it hurt, but we're going to pounce right back up. We're not going away. We're going to be persistent. And what I wanted to spend a little bit of focus on today is in helping people. We're going to talk about Amanda, because Amanda just shared that, hey, I got off the wait list. And I won't reveal a lot of personal information, but I want to talk about how different it is for children on the med waiver than it is for adults, and why we can't just look for APD to solve the need. And so what I need you to do is share my screen again.
You should be able to.
Okay. And you should be seeing it now. Do I need to go back and turn it on?
Yes.
Share screen. Share.
There it is.
Okay, so what we're going to talk a little bit about is a little bit about Medicaid history. And this is the Hollywood version. It's not all every point and bullet, but the primary thing was to talk about this federal protection, early, periodic screening, diagnostics, and treatment. And what is that? And why does it relate at all to what we're talking about? So Medicaid is, if you look at the first sentence here, these benefits provide comprehensive and preventative health care services for children under the age of 21 who are enrolled in Medicaid. Provide comprehensive and preventive benefits. And then it explains what early means. Early means we're going to look for you. We're going to do it on a regular basis. We're going to use screening tools, and we're going to find out and put a label on it. And then we've got to treat it. Kind of like entitled. So Medicaid was founded in the 60s as part of the war on poverty, because the realization was poor children in particular weren't getting the health care and the nutritional needs that they needed, which set their lives from being less than it could have been if they had proper care. And because of the delay and dragging of the feet of this getting implemented, this federal law was passed to protect children, beneficiaries of Medicaid. So, you know, when you hear from APD, if you're a child, they'll say, well, Amanda, the only services that APD can provide is respite and support coordination. Really?
And residential habilitation. That's usually the kicker with people getting on. And that's very important because that's a group home.
Yeah, so well, because it's an institutional-like setting, it's just a funding stream that's a little bit different. But the bottom line really is that the comprehensive health and developmental services do not come from the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. If you're particularly on the Medicaid state plan, rather than you might have this happen under the statewide Medicaid managed care long-term care program, meaning the enforceability of services or the lack of those services that have been identified are more able to be asserted as required and be delivered under the Medicaid state plan, which has a much longer and deeper history of accountability with the early periodic screening, diagnostics, and treatment laws. So why am I talking about this? Because you may have a child that has now qualified for Med waiver, and the family traditionally, until a child turns 18, they are a child and their family's income is considered the child's. So that means families would have to be poor in order for the child to get the comprehensive, complex behavioral and medical services that can come under early periodic screening, diagnostics, and treatment protections. So in Florida, when the Medicaid waiver came to Florida, it was very important for advocates to say, it is terrible that families are forced to divorce, be impoverished, to quit jobs, to lose benefits in order to be poor enough to get their child the care that their private insurance isn't set up to do or isn't covering. And the only place you could get it is through Medicaid. So the goal was to say, count the child as a family of one. The child doesn't get the money, the cash from the SSI check, you don't get the cash. What you get is if you would have qualified as an individual family of one, then you also get the most important benefit that comes with that is if you are poor enough to qualify for SSI, then you automatically receive Medicaid. And if you remain on the Medicaid state plan, you get the protections of early periodic screening, diagnostics, and treatment based upon the medical necessity of a person. So that makes that a whole lot different than what we're seeing happening in some of the Medicaid managed care programs where, for instance, the needs may be identified, the services may be authorized, but the subcontracted work never gets delivered, and there's not enough of an accountable trail to enforce that lack of actual delivery. So the early periodic screening, diagnostics, and treatment law is why APD has a very limited menu of what in the plan, in the services limitation handbook of what is available. Almost 95% of it is paid for through the Agency for Healthcare Administration. So it's really two programs that have to be activated in order to get access to that Medicaid. If you're not poor enough, is to have the waiver waive the child, count the child as a family of one. Anybody got any questions on that part? If that made sense, Lou, can you let me know?
That made sense to me. Roger that.
Made sense to Melissa.
So then what does that mean? Well, there is also the really challenging part of finding in-home complex medical and behavioral support services from providers while simultaneously maintaining your job, your career. When you have a child that has 168 hours a week of demands, that means 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they may have 40 hours a week at school. It still means there's 128 hours or 3 full-time jobs plus an 8-hour shift that needs to be covered in order to meet that child's need. And remember, the home and community-based waiver is an alternative to institutional care. And in order to qualify for the program, the level of care needs to meet an institutional level of need. So the truth is, when you come on the waiver, you have a choice: institutional care or home and community-based care. And inside that, you also have a choice between the iBudget home and community-based care or consumer-directed care. For some folks, this can be really a lifesaver because you can actually be paid for being the valuable caregiver you are. It is very difficult to almost impossible to consistently get nursing care. And let's remember Katie Beckett. Katie Beckett went home because she needed a nursing level care, but with training, it could be a combination of some nursing and home care, and that's how Katie got home. So one of the options is to bring yourself, come in on iBudget and convert to consumer-directed care if you want to do home services. You may need an institutional level of care because of the intensity of why the crises is why that child qualified in the first place. So the first thing to do is be able to meet the health and safety needs and have options. So it could be a community provider based. It could be more of a home. You hire your care, you manage your budget, those types of things. There are a really good little 2-minute little snippet that plays on consumer directed care that gives a pretty good insight about this program. One of the reasons why I'm talking about this is because one of the primary things that we've identified today is that our legislators don't understand these programs. They don't understand who's being served. They don't understand how it works. And they don't understand the impact it has or the impact that it could have, should have, and isn't having. So our primary role is to know our stuff and be educators and advocates, because we have options, but we have to educate. So right here, there's this little video that it's cute. And we're going to skip this ad in one more second.
The consumer directed care.
Hey, Tom, while that, oh, are you starting it? All right.
Program.
I can stop it just like
No,
that.
no, no, no. I was gonna like while the gone. Go ahead and show it. It's fine.
Has the right to be safe.
I think I went and lost it. That's okay.
Person-centered care supports you to be an active partner in your care.
I like that chat. You'd love to be a partner in your care.
The Consumer Directed Care Plus is a long-term care program alternative to the developmental disabilities, home and community-based services of the Medicaid waiver. It is a participant-driven program.
So we won't take the whole time to watch this. It's about 2.5 minutes long. But the point being is there's an example of what you can show your legislator. If you understand it, if you knew people are using it, if it makes like, it looks like it might make some sense, being able to educate, because at this point, again, one of the major things we're running into is there's a lack of understanding. The last point I'm going to talk about a little bit about this is medical necessity. All of the Medicaid funding, whether it's from the I budget or from consumer directed care or from the Medicaid state plan or from the Medicaid statewide Medicaid managed care waivers, all of it is based upon or supposed to be based upon medical necessity. And so one of the biggest challenges that we run into is being honest. You know, it's not the average day that matters. It's the bad day. It's the worst day because that's the size of the parachute you need. So for instance, in order for under CDC for medical necessity to be proven, there's a whole series of handout of documents that have to be signed off by physicians that are saying, yep, you know, the caregiver can't do 100 hours, 150 hours a week without having a negative medical impact on that person. And so part of what this is about is really understanding that this is not done as a favor. It's done because there are federal laws to protect. There is programs that are intended to help. And this is how we create the medical documentation to help the system do what is it intended to do, but sometimes struggles with doing that. So, Stephanie, are you back in a live person that you can talk mode?
I'm back and alive and about to go through a gate. What's the question?
Well, I think part of what I was trying to show is that one of the things that we're trying to communicate to our legislature is how this program can help, but we need to be sure we understand how it works. Because if we can't explain how it works, we can't explain to them how to make it work, right?
And how to make it easier.
Yeah.
Okay, and it is complicated, as you said, it is complex, But and so what I hope we can also do in these processes is help, there's support coordination and there's consulting and there is a real need. There are a lot more support coordinators than there are a lot of skilled support coordinators that understand ACA and medically and behaviorally complex, intense children. That's a really super high specialty part of that whole program. And the truth is, that's where ABA, that's where an awful lot of the therapies will be coming from. That's where options and placement will be coming from. So that kind of gives you an idea about Amanda is so excited while simultaneously totally overwhelmed.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But we're going to work together and make that be a success.
Exactly.
Okay.
So very excited. Thank you. It's a lot of information. It's definitely, there has to be some easier way to navigate, because as a parent who's just finally or just gotten the approval to be placed onto the waiver, and that was overwhelming enough going through that process, and then trying to navigate the next chapter is equally as overwhelming. So I appreciate you.
One of the challenges, Amanda, is that folks are so excited to be approved, they don't understand that the big issue is, what are the medically necessary supports and services that are needed? How much is that going to cost, and how are we going to turn that into a budget? And 10 hours a month of respite and support coordination doesn't cut it, but it may make it look really good in the number of families that were brought on off the wait list. But what we're really trying to do is make sure that if somebody qualifies for crises, it is. And the needs are not simple, they're intense because it was a crisis.
Right.
And so the challenge is, it's like playing Monopoly. If you don't know the rules of the game and the other people do, you get wiped out. If you know that, you can end up owning Broadway. We need to be able to make sure that we're not being greedy, we're being appropriate. This is for the health and safety of an individual in order to remain in their homes and participate in their community or meet other institutional care needs. And that's the choice and the options that we have. So Stephanie, what great thoughts do you have in the world? I still have internet.
The great thoughts I have is I've tasked Amanda with announcements because my internet sucks, and I'm glad to be here. But she's Amanda's going to tell us what we can do, right? Right, Amanda?
Yes, that's right. So something that's been brought up by someone else, and Stephanie and I were talking about it earlier, was like press releases and just kind of getting the word out even more about what we're trying to do and what we're actually accomplishing by speaking to our legislatures. And so I'm going to see what I can figure out to help in that. And if there's anyone else on
Amanda,
here. Yes,
this is Margaret Hooper.
Oh, hey.
We have a thing about how to do a press release in our advocacy toolkit on our website.
Excellent.
And it shows what you can do for a DD day, and that's if you're having one locally. And it has different options to print out. So it's under the advocacy and legislative tabs on the fddc.org.
And you don't mind if we post that on our page as well, right?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. Also, let's see at DD Day for sure. We need to start planning like now if anyone is planning to go. Because from what I understand, I've never been and I'm excited to go this year. From what I understand, it gets quite busy up there. So if we, we're trying to figure out how to get that coordinated, and if there are any needs or anything like that to get us up there.
I had a
Also
comment
family
on that,
care
Amanda.
councils. I'm sorry.
I think what part of our theme ought to be this year is every day is DD Day in my house.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I
that
know.
we make sure they understand the constant of it,
Right. Yeah.
consistent in the requirement, and that yes, getting focused legislatively is great, but we've got to come up with some catchy things that get people kind of. I think Melissa almost fell off her chair there. But you know, that kind of every day is DD Day in my house may be kind of a bit of a theme. And because I really want to tie that together with all the family stories
Right.
and be able to share that and plaster that and keep that. And that kind of keeps the people, the faces out there beyond that day.
Excellent. And I also shared in the chat the link for the stories and our Facebook group and the YouTube channel and all the things. Also family care councils. So that's something that I had posted on in the Facebook group about my area. And then I realized when I looked at all of the counties, how all of the counties are very rural. So there's probably not much action going on. So yeah, any movements on those? And what else, Stephanie? Oh.
I'm going to do Pinellas County.
Okay. So I we got to our destination, so I missed the last part, but I wanted to make sure that everybody understands we've trying to make DD Day a group opportunity for us. Okay, I will. And start to we put a poll out on the Facebook page, like, and we got 6 responses. So I'm hoping there's more than 6 of us that get to go, but even if it's a no, like, or I don't know how I would possibly get there. Maybe Melissa, you could help us like task force that.
Help task
Like with all
force
of your
what?
emails, see if
Help task force what?
collaborating on make a DD Day. So like, you know how last year we were all gonna meet, which you know I didn't because I was overwhelmed. But like we were gonna meet together as a group, which was not the We the People, it was just like 6 people. If we could like find a lunch spot, or I don't know how to organize this. Looking for help.
Figure that out. And Stephanie,
DD
along that
Day.
line too, one of the things, a message that has to be conveyed is, I wish I could be there, but I'm at home doing care.
Yeah.
And
And then the stories, that's it. Yeah, that go back. Yeah. So the real big thing right now with legislative delegation meetings kind of families aren't able to come, but we definitely need more families to participate in the stories. We have providers doing it. We have grandparents do it. Like there's a ton of connections to our developmentally disabled community. Like I want that voice. So for those of us who can go to DD Day, that way we can just show everybody in leadership with the APD and our legislators, we really, really need your support this year. And here we are. And then the family care councils, I think that this is a great opportunity for us to go to our local family care councils and tell about the We the People group, because those are the family members that are trying to get educated and supported. They're already there. I went to the like Hillsborough, DeSoto, Sarasota one, and I'm going Jim. His name's Jim. He's Family Care Council 1. Jim Howard. What a cool guy. What an incredible story. He's the chair of Family Care Council 1. And his meeting is online and it's next Thursday, so right before ours. And he's gonna come actually the next day and come speak to We the People. But getting families through the family care council, and also for us to go to family care councils, because what Tom just said is about that ACA portion. Like, those are things we talk about in family care council meetings and more. Like, I forgot the guy's name. Mike Lacey was on the call at the Sarasota one. The one before that was Michael Taylor. Like, people within the APD, giving us the information from them, making our connections with them, like, not always so strained, is so important to build that collaborative relationship. And that's what happens at the family care council meetings. So I would really like us to get involved with them, and for us to find people, because we're starting to stall on numbers and participation. And at this stage in the game, I want us to like run and grow. Tell everybody and see us next Friday at 2 p.m.
Well,
Stephanie,
Okay.
before we go, are you going to the one in Miami?
Who, me?
Yes.
If it's the 28th, I might have a conflict. There's Senator Pasadomo is coming to talk about her Live Healthy initiative, and I'm going with another group. I think that may be the same day. I'm not sure. But if not, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And
So here we are.
if there's somebody that can rally that too, Hebby, if you want to do like Miami, get people from Miami to participate in Miami, or whoever's
I'll
wants to do
send an
that.
email. I'll send an
Yeah,
email out right now after the meeting about that delegation, the Charlotte delegation, and the stories. And I haven't received any recent stories, so I wasn't sure like if they've like
Me either. So
Okay.
we had it rolling in hard, and it's just stopped.
No, Stephanie, I think that Melissa is also talking about the electronic ones. I think that only 2 were sent, and it was each one to one legislator. So we have a window of opportunity there that we are missing.
Okay, so again, let's get with that. Are we calling those things committees? I don't know. But
if
like
there-
get with.
if there's any
Liz told me
parents,
she's
if there's any
been doing
parents
them.
on the call who can, I mean, I have asked a couple of day programs, but to even just help, like, with just your own connection with a day program or provider that, your sons, daughters, grandkids are working with, they might be able to also help with, with doing those stories as well. So I know it's kind of difficult when things are, almost seem like they're kind of stalling a little bit, and it's important for us to continue to like be pulling in, people as we can, and try to finish out hard, where there's 19 weeks left of the legislative season, or session, I should say, until the end of it. But anyway, I'll send an email out right now, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you,
it's,
Melissa.
it's 7:05, and what we were
Yes.
trying to do is respect everybody's time and the fact that it's Friday evening. And Melissa, what's it got? Are you waving by?
Yep, I was just waving by.
Okay,
Bye, everybody.
so everybody, thank you for your hour. Thank you for your time. Keep figuring out ways to make the connections, and we really appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.
See you
Thank you.
next
Same to
Friday,
you.
2
Bye-bye.
p.m. Bye.
Bye.